believe we do have quorum. As Sarah Riding and John Donahue, there we go. So that is a grand total of 8. Perfect. So good evening, everyone. It is 6:01 and I am going to get this meeting off started, as we do need to do the election of officers for this meeting. So is there a mover or a nomination for the position of chair? Roger?
Sorry, did you hear that?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
Sorry. I moved David Stocks to be chair.
Perfect. Is there a seconder? Perfect. There we go. And then if I could just have any other movers or options for chair? Seeing none, I will close the vote. All those in favor of David Stocks being elected chair? Perfect, thank you. And then just mover or seconder for the position of vice chair, please.
I'll move that Rachel Askett be vice chair.
Perfect. And can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Roger Healy, perfect. Any other nominations for chair? Or vice chair, sorry. Seeing none, I will close the vote. All those in favor of Rachel Askett being appointed vice chair? Perfect. With all that out of the way, I'm very happy to turn it over to you, Mr. Chair, to get the meeting started.
Okay, great. Welcome, everybody. It only seems like we haven't met for almost a year. Did you call the meeting to order, clerk? I think you did, right? So that's done. So we need approval of the agenda. Rachel moves to approve the agenda. Seconder. Roger, thank you. All those in favor of approval of the agenda? Carried. Thanks, John. Moving on to confirmation of the minutes. So all of you should have received the minutes from our meeting of October 20th, 2021. Any omissions, changes, anything anybody saw that needed to be fixed on those? Not seeing any. I'll ask for a confirmation or mover for the confirmation of the minutes. Roger, seconder. Thanks, Tamsin. And all those in favor? Confirmation of the minutes. Thank you, carried. There's my dog coming to say hi. Letty, see? Everybody's
sorry, just through you, Mr. Chair, if Miss Riding could please keep her camera on if possible, or raise her virtual hand in Zoom if not, just so that we can confirm that we can stay at quorum, please. Thanks.
I guess we're tight. Disclosure of any pecuniary interest. Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk if there are any delegations.
There are no delegations tonight, Mr. Chair.
Any briefings?
None tonight, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we'll move on to the business at hand. So I'll ask Ms. Salter-Keene, I guess, who will introduce the business at hand.
Oh, great, thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, I'm Julie Salter-Keene. I'm the manager of the Climate Leadership Division at the city. I'm not sure what members were here probably last year for your last meeting when we talked about the second round for the Kingston Community Climate Action Fund. So I'll give you a brief overview. I'll talk about the applications before you this evening, and then I can leave it for questions if you would like. So council approved the Kingston Community Climate Action Fund in July of 2020 to assist nonprofits and charities with projects to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. So through the approval process, the projects are, we go through a application process. The applications come to this committee, and once approved by council, we have a public donation campaign, which runs from December 1st until March 31st of the following year. So for this year, it'd be December 1st for the applications. The funds are, the public donations are raised through Canada Helps, an online charity donation campaign, and we have partnered with Kingston Community Credit Union, who they do match through their branches. If $5,000 are raised through their branch, they matched a donation of $5,000. So this is the third round of applications. And even though we launched in 2020 at the height of COVID, we have been very happy at the city of the donations that have been raised through the first round, where we had 2 applications, and then last year with the 3 projects. We've raised over approximately $100,000 of public donations for these projects. I'm happy to say that the ones, so there have been 5 projects through the first 2 years that have been approved and donations are raised, and they've all gone ahead and have completed their the projects and are reporting back to the city on their success. So this year, there are 3 applications before you. One is the Frontenac Club Daycare Integration Program, and they're proposing to do some major deep energy retrofits on their building. They have funding for a number of the renovations already, but through the public donation campaign, they're looking to install air source heat pumps and do spray foam installation in their buildings. So there will be major GHG reduction in the buildings, as well as the comfort for the individuals and savings in their energy costs as well. On Guanada, they're looking to raise funds for an electric wheelchair transport bike. During COVID and before that, they would take their clients out for change of scenery to see what's happening in their van, and they're proposing it's a electric bike that has a wheelchair form at the front of the bike, so an individual will be riding the e-bike, and then the client sits in the wheelchair, and they'll be able to go around town and see the sights, etc. So not only will they be reducing their greenhouse gas emissions by not using their van, but using this bike, it certainly will be a benefit to the client, where they'll be able to get outside and have some really good experiences that way. And then the third one is Sustainable Kingston, and they're looking to raise funds for an electric vehicle. This past winter, they were originally, there was Red Scroll Services, which did energy audits, etc. And they have, Sustainable Kingston did an asset transfer. So now Red Scroll is under Sustainable Kingston, and they are doing energy audits for homes. And in particular, they're quite busy right now with the Better Homes Kingston program that the city launched in April. So they, rather than the energy auditors driving in their vehicle that are gas powered, they will be using this electric vehicle to visit the homes to do their energy audits. So they would be looking at reducing their greenhouse gas emissions substantially as well. In your package, there was criteria that was established to rank the projects with respect to meeting the criteria established by council for the Climate Action Fund. And as you can see in the report, staff has acknowledged that they do meet the eligibility and that they are feasible projects. In light of, as well, with respect to public donations, we as a city are looking at alternative ways to increase our funding through this campaign for the Climate Action Fund. We're looking at some to see what we can do with some sponsorships. We've spoken with a number of industries that want to donate to the fund and to get some recognition. So I'm working with our strategic partnership division at the city to see how we can really capture some big dollars out there from some industries or some public donations, as well as the regular public donations that we're looking to always increase and improve as we move forward as well. And I think with that, I will leave that. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Healy?
Yes, I just have a question about the role of Keefe is to approve this whole package. Is there a question of rating them or asking that one not be accepted or anything like that? Is our job is to just pass this on? Could you explain the process?
Sure. Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair. So in your package, you would have received the evaluation guide that provides the application review tips as well as a ranking system. So it's the role of Keefe, as approved by council, was to evaluate the applications and make a recommendation to council.
Oh, sorry. So then we are to fill out this evaluation sheet. Is that expected tonight?
No, that was to, and through you, Mr. Chair, that was to assist you prior to the meeting this evening to look at the applications and come forth with a recommendation. Now, the report before you this evening from staff has recommended that all 3 projects be approved, but that's totally Keith's role to look at the applications and to make that decision and recommend to council.
Okay.
Rachel?
Yeah, I think all the applications looked really interesting, and I liked that it wasn't just like there were 2 transportation ones and 1 with building infrastructure too. So I think they had a good range to them. I think you answered the question, Julie. Initially, we were thinking of what that bike for the wheelchair assisted bike looked like, and if they're purchasing 1, well, wouldn't it be nice to have 2 so people could go out together and it wasn't just one person using the bike? But I think that makes sense with someone's using the e-bike and then someone is using the wheelchair seat at the front. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Thank
Okay.
you, and through you, Mr. Chair. We were actually very excited to see this application. It just doesn't tick off the box of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but social equity, inclusiveness really go forward. But it is all one structure, and then the e-bike's at the back, and then the wheelchair form is at the front where the client would sit.
Amazing. Okay, thank you. That's helpful. A super cool project too. Did you find, sorry, I'm jumping in, but I didn't see any other hands up. Did you find that applications, that organizations had an easier time submitting applications compared to other years, or any progression that way with just the process, out of curiosity?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. We did a lot of outreach this year, and really for the nonprofits and charities, when you look at this is free money. Like, they do have to do work to promote their project, but we as staff support them with their social media and campaigning and all that. But we really reached out a lot. We didn't receive many well, we have the 3, but we did a lot of work to get those 3. We reached out and we were phoning and emailing every nonprofit and charity we know in Kingston, and these few were like, yeah, we saw it, we're really excited, but they were concerned it was going to take a lot of time to fill in the application. So we're going to have to rethink it. Last year, for the year before, we did an information session, and we had a few individuals attend, but they didn't apply. So we're going to look at how we can maybe start this outreach now for next year, so we can really contact those nonprofits and, explain the process, that it's not a lot of work to put the application together. They do need quotes. So if they wait till the last week, it is a lot of work to get those quotes and get those invoices in. But we will rethink how we do it for next year, because it has been successful, as I said, even during COVID. So if we can up those applications, so there's some really good variety, we'll do what we can do to make that happen.
Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns or thoughts about the projects? Back to you, Mr. Healy.
Sorry, I don't mean to be monopolizing these questions, but as Rachel said, I think the one involving Anguanada sounds like a terrific idea. I think that's a great one. The daycare one, I just have some questions. Do you know, like, they're talking about converting these outbuildings to childcare spaces, and that seems to be like a big project. And that this proposal is to just supply the heat pumps affected, or to go with those facilities. But do they have planning permission to expand? And how are they getting permission to make these outbuildings? My idea of an outbuilding is a garage. They're going to convert those to childcare spaces. Is that all legit?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So this application was sent to our housing staff, and our director of housing reviewed it with their daycare individual, because we do fund these daycares, and they had no concerns with this project at all.
Okay. It just struck me as a little bit kind of crazy. And this is not a for-profit daycare?
No, it's a nonprofit.
And are they participating in the subsidized daycare routine that's just been accepted by the federal government?
That I cannot answer. Sorry, it's not. As I said, I sent it to our director of housing and social services, and they had no concerns with this application.
Yeah, well, finally, I just have some questions about the Sustainable Kingston request. They're suggesting that this could save 235 liters of gasoline. And they're sort of talking about Kingston area versus Kingston. And I thought this had to be Kingston, not Brockville or who knows where, Gananoque. Where are they proposing to?
They're going to be
talked about doing 51 audits a year, or let's say 50 a year. It just seems like I guess what I'm getting at is, it seems like a pretty trivial request or need for a vehicle. And I'm just curious about whether Sustainable Kingston, for example, has access to some of the city fleet, or how do they do their current stuff now?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. They do not have access to the city fleet. They're a corporation of their own. They're a nonprofit. What I can say is that they, through Sustainable Kingston, are the Energy Coach service for the Better Homes Kingston program, which launched in April, and which we've received over 400 applications already, and has been so successful that it was supposed to be a 4-year program with 500 applications over the 4 years. We're already at 400 applications. They currently have one energy auditor, and will be certifying 2 in the next couple of weeks. So they currently are doing over 10 energy audits a week in the city of Kingston. This vehicle will be used within the city of Kingston, and staff have no concern with that use.
Okay, I'm sorry. It still strikes me as just totally frivolous, because first of all, they're supposed to be supporting a sustainable system lifestyle, and riding electric cars is not green and not sustainable. I hate to differ with popular opinion, but you don't have to be, you can't, okay, so who's going to pay for insurance, parking of this vehicle? Who's going to own it? Is
So
it
this would,
going,
sorry. So this would be
Well-
a vehicle owned by the Sustainable Kingston.
right?
Their energy auditors they drive a vehicle to the homes. They have equipment. They can't walk. I mean, they can't really take a bus to all these different homes throughout the city of Kingston. You have to remember, city of Kingston is a large area, just not the urban core. And it will be owned and operated and insured by Sustainable Kingston. And right now they're using gas vehicles to get to these homes. So they're proposing to purchase this electric vehicle rather than using a gas vehicle.
For 235 liters a year. To
Where
me,
did-
it's just
where
the
did you
most
see that,
ludicrous thing
Roger?
I've heard.
Roger, where did you see that?
It's in their report for their application.
Do you know the
Um,
page? Do you know?
Yeah, Exhibit A,
There's page
page
16.
19. Question, how will your proposed project reduce greenhouse gas emissions? And the answer is that, you know, in 2022, they did a total of 51 energy assessments and another 39 in the surrounding area. That's why I was questioning, you know, how far is this surrounding area? And does this qualify as Kingston? And then this work-related travel resulted in 2,641 kilometers and 235 liters of gasoline. And they spelled it all out to the microgram.
So may I just interject?
Yeah.
That's for 4 months. That's not for a year. That was from June 3rd to August 17th. So not even, all of June to July, 2.5 months. That was 2.5 months, not a full year of service.
Okay.
And that was just with the launch of Better Homes Kingston. So as I said, it would be, they would be saving substantially in their greenhouse gas emissions reduction and their cost savings, and proposed in their application as well is that they'll reinvest that savings into Sustainable Kingston.
Okay. I'd love to work for Sustainable Kingston then.
Anybody else have any questions?
David Arnott.
Oh, sorry, David. Yeah, go ahead. I didn't see that up there.
Thanks very much. I didn't, as a technical representative, I didn't vote on the previous applications that came in, and I won't be voting on this one. But I just want to ask the question to Roger's point. Did Keith not support an application previously from Martha's Table for the purchase of an electric vehicle? And so, what is the, if there's an objection this round, what is the substantial difference between that application previously and this one in terms of the need for the vehicle itself? Just out of curiosity, for consistency with the committee more than anything else.
Was that a question for staff? I'm sorry.
Not so much a question, more just a comment and observation on past applications and Keith's position on those applications versus this one, where there's similarities involved. If the committee's changing its position, what's the reason for that change in similar applications from the past? That's all.
Well, I think one of the big differences is they're delivering food to low-income recipients. That's in the Martha's Table example. in the example of Sustainable Kingston doing their energy audits, I think with I just sort of question the need for a vehicle to start with. And whereas I think in the case of Martha's Table, they were delivering quite a substantial number of meals also in a pandemic and all that stuff. So that was a different situation. To me, the situation with energy audits is not comparable.
Yes, Rachel?
Yeah, I do support the application for the electrical vehicle, just with the energy audits, because it's connected to such a powerful grant to retrofit buildings, and is also supporting people who maybe otherwise wouldn't be able to retrofit their older homes and the infrastructure in the city. So I think it does represent like potentially like a impasse or a barrier to getting those projects going quicker, and then to see those energy savings in those buildings quicker as well, in a more energy efficient way, especially supporting the growth of the team that Julie had mentioned as they're training 2 more energy auditors as well. So I do think that they're proposing this in a reasonable way, and not in a way where they're, just trying to drive around in a fancy electrical vehicle. Whereas, there does seem to be a rational plan behind it. And I do see the time being a constraint for their team to complete all of these audits and to complete their task of the building retrofits.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Ludmilla has her hand up.
Oh, sorry. It's funny, in that top corner, it gets lost. You're sort of in my top corner there, so I apologize, Imelda. Go ahead. I think you're muted still. You want to try again? I think you're still muted. Can the clerk help?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Ludmilla, I believe if you try to maybe unplug your headphones, I think it's your headphones might be broken. So if you might be able to speak using the, if there's a microphone built into your laptop, we might be able to hear you from there.
Nope.
No.
Now?
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a few options for a microphone. So yeah, okay, good. No, it's not, I don't have really a question, but I just wanted to comment on what Roger said and Rachel. And I think I agree with Roger. It's the savings are not going to be like a lot just to justify the need of an electric vehicle. And I agree with Rachel that it's important. So they are contributing to an important project, retrofitting, auditing, doing the audits. But my point is Sustainable Kingston is an important organization in the city that really it would be good for them just to see them driving an electric vehicle instead of a gas fuel vehicle, if they are going to use any, to do the audits anyway, as a way to really set an example and for the organization and for the city to really instead of using a gas fuel vehicle that contributes to emissions, even though they are small, but still, it's I will support the project going ahead. Yeah, for that reason, I think yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No, my pleasure.
Any other questions? I guess I'll ask Roger, do you want to formally object to any of these, or change the recommendations? Your questions and concerns, I think, have been noted. Is that sort of what you wanted, or will that suffice?
Yeah, I suppose I'm not, it's not a hill to die on, that's for sure.
Okay.
But I really would comment that, you know, if you're having trouble finding 3 good projects, that at least look at the you know, the cost relative to the savings. And you know, I mean, the recent household travel survey done just before the pandemic indicated Kingstonians make 400,000 trips a day. And even using very conservative estimates of how much fuel is being spent on those, 2/3 of those trips, by the way, are by car. And you know, it just, I mean, what they are talking about saving is just a drop in the bucket. Like I just think it's inappropriate to be recommending this, in this case, for such a meager saving, and to expend $50,000 is what it's probably going to cost them in the end on saving a little bit, where they could put their energy into something much more effective, like encouraging people not to drive. And you know, it's just, to me, it's ludicrous. But your question, Mr. Chair, was whether I would object. Yeah, I would love to have those objections noted, and that in future people don't use this fund to buy electric cars, because they do not solve a problem unless they have a very, very, you know, convincing case for using one. It's just wrong-headed to think that if you own an electric car, you're all of a sudden David Suzuki's friend, and it's just ludicrous.
Okay, I think we've noted that. We need a mover for the motion, the recommendation that the Kingston Community Climate Action Fund applications attached to the report as Exhibit A meet the objectives and eligibility criteria and be approved for public donation. I'll ask somebody to move that. Is that John? John, are you?
Chairman, I'd like to ask that we deal with the projects one by one, at least, so that if there are members who want to vote against one of them, they don't get caught, with a single motion for all 3 when they might support the other 2.
I'd ask the clerk. Do that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the recommendation is not written in that way, and so it cannot be broken up clause by clause. It would have to be amended to do so.
So again, I'd ask that. So John, do you still, or Rachel, do you have something to say here, or are you?
I was just hoping for some clarification from the clerk then. I take it the recommendation was written by whom? Staff?
So the recommendation does come from the report. But it is up to the committee to approve the recommendation or make any changes they see fit. Any recommendations or any motions to amend the recommendation do need to be sent to me so I can put them up on screen. And they would need to be moved and seconded and voted on before we could get back to the original motion as well as amended.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. To you, Rachel.
I'm not sure where this would go in place of the voting, so I just wanted to ask this now because I definitely hear Roger's point in the like how we evaluate things and where we see value in projects. And I know it's tough when we're trying to garner or ask organizations that are working very hard and maybe have minimal manpower to think of these things and maybe when it's not their expertise. But could there be at some point us making a recommendation, whether that's through this approval or through a separate recommendation of like how we encourage projects or like what types of projects are encouraged, or setting up maybe like a more established evaluation plan rather than the rating system? I'm just like, obviously haven't given it much thought, but I think there's maybe an opportunity to improve the evaluation program to encourage more a more variety of projects in the future.
Okay, I think Julie's going to answer that question. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you for that question, Rachel, and through you, Mr. Chair. I'd be happy to bring a report to Keith next year in either Q1 or Q2 to look at, working with Keith on the evaluation and what we can look at for projects. And I'd be happy to do that and move forward. And I would look to the committee clerk for confirmation, but I myself don't need a motion to do that. I can, he's shaking his head, yeah, we don't need that motion. So I would be happy to do that and come back to Keith next year with some criteria, etc.
I think that would be great. And I think everyone could have an opportunity then to go through the rubric that is there and maybe have some input directly on the projects. So, but for tonight, I'd ask that someone move the recommendation from council. Rachel, seconded. Can I second? I'll second it. So I'd ask all those in favor of the recommendation to put the 3 projects forward. 2, 3, and the other. And is it objections or vote nay? 1. So that's carried. So moving on, are there any motions? Any notices of motion? Other business? Any correspondence, clerk? No. The date of next meeting is to be determined. And I thank everyone for their time. Maybe just a short note to thank the councillors for their service. So Councillor Doherty, they're not here, and Councillor Neal have served on this committee for a number of years, who they will not be running this election. So, so we thank them for their time. And the clerk will be in touch. I've heard that because there's a new election, we will all probably have to reapply to the position. Everything kind of gets put in the work. So the clerk will be in touch in the future about that. Anything else on that, Mr. Sullivan?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I expect to send an email to the forum sometime later this week, just kind of describing what's going to be going on. Since it is an election year, the current members will stay in place until replaced or reappointed by the incoming council, and that will be sometime in December. We don't want to give a firm date because the new nominations committee hasn't even been struck yet, but you will be more than informed that when that happens and when that takes place. And I will send another email after that, one or later this week, with instructions on how to reapply and a link directly to there as well.
Okay, thank you. Rachel?
I look forward to hearing about projects in the future, like Julie had mentioned, but I was wondering if it was possible to hear about the projects that have already been approved and in practice. I know there's a little description of them in the agenda that we had today, but it would be nice to have more detail on the success of those past projects as well, and that can help inform evaluations moving forward for next year too.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think Julie mentioned that the projects that have been approved of previous years have to also put in the paperwork of how successful it was and what their data said. So I would agree we could look forward to seeing that. Julie, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to say, when I do the report or we meet in the new year, I can include the details on their implementation and what has been accomplished to date as well.
That'd be great. Mr. Healy?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to, this is a complete non sequitur, but I just wanted, I believe the last time we met, we were discussing the dredging of the inner harbor. What's the latest on that? I mean, I've heard absolutely nothing. So I just wondered if I could get a quick update.
Sure, through the clerk.
So as of currently, there is, I believe, a federal project taking place in federal public engagement. There was a large sign just outside of City Hall. That is, to my knowledge, where the stands. If Julie Salter-Keaton would know more, she would be the best person to, or Paul McLatchy. But as of right now, for business in front of the committee, I have not seen anything related to that.
Yes, Ms. Lang.
Sorry, I gotta unmute myself. I know that the, as the clerk said, there is a open public consultation right now. And if people are interested, the federal project owners and their consultants have a website with all of the information on the project, with videos you can watch, and with a comment form for submitting comments on the project design. So I believe that is also posted on the City of Kingston website. The link to it.
Thank you for that. The other thing that the group was working on was the State of the Environment report. And I believe that's, the clerk has asked Paul McLatchy what state that's in, and I know COVID and interns and things sort of put that kind of on hold. So we're waiting to hear back about that as well. But that should be upcoming for Keith too. So seeing no other information, date of next meeting, I'll ask for adjournment. Somebody oppose that? Ms. Lang, Mr. Healy, seconded. All those in favor? Stay warm tonight, everybody. It's going to be cold. Thank you.